Let's make a cute tissue holder on the embroidery machine. So I just finished stitching up the car bag from the MeTime delivered from Kimberbell's Hoop Studio. And they have a second project that is a little cute tissue pouch. And so the materials came with the kit. It came with a large piece of fabric, and I've already cut and prepped these. These are 3 pieces at 4.5 by 6. They are all backed with fusible interfacing. And then 2 of the pieces are folded and pressed in half so that there's a fold on one edge and of course open on the other. And then the batting. I am using just regular no-show mesh. I have my 5x7 hoop, and this is an extra piece that I will just save. So when I cut this design off, I will have one that will probably fit my 4x4 hoop. So let's get started with getting the placement line stitched in the hoop. I have sent the design over, which is this cute little flower design. I have sent that right to my machine. So let's go get this tissue holder started. So I will go to embroidery, and I will go to the Wi-Fi icon. And here is the little design that I sent directly to my machine. And I will hit set and embroidery. Now I am going to move this up as far as I can because I have that excess stabilizer off the bottom of my hoop. I want to save as much as I can. So I'm going to come to layout and move it to the top, and it will only let me move it to the very top. It won't let me go past. I will select OK. And then I always like to go to this minus plus needle in case I need to skip or go back for some reason. So now I'm ready to stitch out the placement line for the batting. Now I will put my batting over and make sure it's over all of the placement lines. This I did not cut to size like I do most of my Kimberbell projects. I am going to put it close to the left-hand side so that I will have almost half of it left. That way I might be able to use it for something else. And now it will do the tack down. Now I am going to trim right next to the placement or the tack down line. And I will save this piece. I could probably, do a whole nother one if I wanted to. Now it's going to put a stitch down the center that we will actually cut. So let's take this back to the cutting mat, and we need to cut this line right here. So I'm at the cutting mat, and this line that is down the center, and I'm not sure if you can see that it actually extends a little bit beyond the batting on both sides, and we will actually cut from below the batting past the top of the batting, and I have a little ruler. It doesn't quite fit and it's kind of sideways, but I will line it up. And I'm going to cut right down that line. So you can see that it's cut through the stabilizer. And now I need to take one of the folded pieces and I am going to slip this through so that I have the fold right against that cut. It wraps around to the back. Their directions actually say to, open it up, place it on the fold, and then tuck it, but you can just tuck. You can just slide it in. And we need to tape because we are going to put both sides on before we do a tack down. So I want this fold to be right against that cut line. And I want it to be snug. So I am going to put quite a bit of tape. And then I'll flip this over and do the same thing. Again, I want to snug this up. There's nothing under here to support this, so you need to be careful not to press too hard, or you might loosen the stabilizer and that will get the placement lines off. I could put a towel or something, or they even have like a wool mat, kind of like a wool pressing mat that you iron on that fits inside of hoops so that you can really press. So I'll turn it over and now I'll press down. And I need to do the same thing to this other side. So I'll just slip this through that opening and kind of snug it up to that opening. We do not want this material to overlap. So you don't want, you don't want it to be like that. You need to snug that fold or that crease right up against. So let me tape one side. Flip it over and kind of, again, tug it so you can see that there is a space. Don't press too hard right now so that you don't get that. Hopefully that's not too loose. And then when you flip it back, I think I'm going to tighten this one up a little bit. Then I can really press down. And you can see that these do not overlap. Now let's get back to the machine. So the next step we're going to do is the tack down of the fabric and then the background quilting. Now the directions do say to match the bobbin with the top thread. I have kind of a medium brown for the quilting, and I do not have the exact same bobbin. I am using a bobbin that has a little bit lighter of a thread, and I'm not too concerned. I think the reason they want the bobbin to match is because this is a project that you open up and you could potentially see the quilting on the inside. I'm not that worried about it. So my bobbin does not match exactly with my top thread. So the first thing is to do the tack down. Now I do want to point out that when I cut my batting open, I had my ruler, remember, a little bit slanted up onto the hoop, and I didn't cut it exactly on that cut line. So you can see that the edge of one of my sides is larger than the other, and that's not how it's supposed to be. So if you cut directly on that cut line and be a little bit more precise than I was, then of course each of these edges will be exactly the same. But I'm not going to worry about it. So let's do the quilting. Oh, my thread broke. Let me change it. So I just rethreaded, and I want to go back because when I start, it's not going to do any kind of locking stitch because it's right in the middle of this design. So and that's one reason I like to come to this minus plus, so it's just here when I need it. I'm going to go back 10, so I'll hit the minus 10, and it will just move the hoop back 10 stitches, and then it will kind of just go over what it just stitched, and it will kind of help lock those in. That is such a cute little flower. I love it. That would be cute as a border. So I'm going to take this tape off, and now I need to place the backing face down, and I just need to make sure to cover that outside. And I will tape it in a few spots. So if you watched the car bag video, you'll know that there was a lining piece of fabric that I used a different fabric to line, but I have this big piece, and part of this fabric is meant for the lining for this little tissue holder. So I've cut the 4.5 by 6-inch piece out of that tan fabric, and I'm going to turn this hoop to the back and lay this, just make sure it's covering everything. And I will add some tape and then flip it back around. And there's one more step. It will go almost all the way around, leaving just a gap for us to turn this. So now we can take this out of the hoop. And if you'll notice, let me take this tape off. This is why, again, when I have strips of stabilizer, I don't cut them to the size of my hoop because I can use this. So here you can see where my hoop ended. All this would have been wasted. And I know that seems like such a little amount, but now, because I can cut right next to the design and I move the design up towards the top of the hoop, I have enough to actually hoop again in my 5 by 7. I might make another one of these to see if I can get that center a little bit better. So now I just need to cut 1/4 of an inch or so. around the stitching lines. The only thing that I'm going to do different is I'm going to kind of angle where the stitching ends and started. I'll cut this to 1/4 of an inch, and this side. And I'm going to cut this a little bit longer. So I am going to hold the inside and the lining back, and then I'm going to trim the rest of this down because we don't need the stabilizer and the other side. So now trim the corners, and they even said to kind of trim diagonal if you can. Again, this is pretty thick with the stabilizer and those 2 folded fabrics. And then just turn this. So when you turn it, you will have the inside facing out and see the quilting from inside, and I need to close that opening up. So I am going to use a fuse tape. I will tuck the fabric in. I think I'm going to go iron it so it holds and folds a little bit better, and then I will use this tape, it's a permanent tape, to shut that opening. I think I'm going to trim a little bit of this piece off so that I can fold that edge over a little bit better. Now I'll go press it and get ready to tape that closed. So my camera died, and I just used this fabric fuse. It's a double-sided sticky tape. It's permanent. You do not iron it. And I cut a little piece the width of the opening and then made a thinner piece to seal that opening shut. You peel off the one side after you stick the first side down and seal it shut. Then I flipped the entire tissue holder to the right side, and you can see it's lined, and it's just a cute little tissue holder. Again, the center should be even, and that is when you cut the batting, to make sure to cut directly on that line. This is a cute little project.